right, welcome to another episode of the Deals for Dentists podcast. And today we have Brian Dershow, and he has a promo on Deals for Dentists, 10% off all turbines, minimum purchase of 2 by using the discount code D4D at checkout. And he is the founder of Turbi. Thanks for joining us.
You got it. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
So Brian, you're zooming in from South Florida. What part?
Yeah, we're in Delray Beach, so this is the season down here. 75 and sunny and beautiful every day. So can't complain. It's probably a little bit different than where you're sitting, huh?
Oh yeah, it's getting cold here. It's freezing. I miss South Florida because I went to school at Nova,
Okay.
so I'm very familiar with South Florida. My parents live in Boca Raton, so I used to go to Delray Beach all the time. And in fact, I'm not sure if it's still there. There was a bar called Boston's on the Beach, and I used to go there and watch Patriots games, surrounded by Boston fans. So it was pretty cool. But Delray Beach has totally changed since I was there. I graduated in 2002, and it's like a completely different place from when I left there. But what a great area to live in.
Yeah, it's grown by leaps and bounds. I've been here since 2008, and it's changed considerably since then. But I don't think Boston's is going to go anywhere. That place is an institution, and it's a Patriots, Celtics, Bruins bar, isn't it? It's a Northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was all Boston sports. So it was that was like my home away from home when I went to dental school. So your company is called Turbi, and I'm going to put on my hard hitting research hat here and assume that you fix turbines, right, for handpieces?
Well, we don't fix the turbines. We replace the broken turbines. So we send a complete turbine, and the turbine is what makes your high-speed pneumatic air-driven handpiece turn and cut teeth. And so what happens is the turbine eventually will wear out and it won't hold the burr, won't spin correctly, the bearings may go, and that's going to happen over a period of time. And, the biggest culprit for that is the autoclave, so as you know, you guys have been putting your handpieces in autoclaves for, I don't know, maybe it's 20 or 30 years now. I think maybe since the 80s is when it was mandated. And ever since that happened, the handpiece just doesn't last as long as it would without going into that heat and that pressure. So that wears out the small parts in the turbine, causes the turbine to fail, usually not hold the burr. And that's when you need a repair for your handpiece.
And you actually sell a kit, correct? Turbi has a kit that you send out, and you send it directly to the dentist's office?
Correct. And so this is a different spin on handpiece repair. And I've got a number of years of experience in the dental equipment repair arena. And one of the things that, I saw over the years was dentists are using either, one of the big dealers that we all know, or maybe a local person to come in and grab their handpieces. Then maybe they mail them out. And, a few days later, maybe a week or two later, they get their handpiece back repaired. Well, what the doctors or the staff, Eric, it doesn't have to be the dentist. It could be the hygienist. It could be the assistant. It could be the front desk person, the office manager. What we've seen over the years is that those folks, including the dentist, are good with their hands. I mean, that's what you guys do all day, right? And fixing a high-speed pneumatic handpiece is a very simple task. It takes probably less than 5 minutes, depending on the handpiece. And so what most dentists don't know, they've never been told, because their repair or their dealers make money off of these repairs, is how easy it is to do it on your own. And so what I've done is I have put a turbine in a kit with a cap wrench. And so for all of your pneumatic air-driven turbines, there's a little cap on the back. Most of you guys use push buttons these days. Some use levers. And every handpiece, whether it's a Midwest or a Sorona or Cavo or whatever the brand is, uses a unique wrench to remove the head cap. And the head cap pops off, and now you've accessed the dental turbine. And the turbine has typically a couple O-rings on it, maybe a washer or two, and bearings. and they're all pressed to a spindle, and the spindle is what holds your burr. And what I sell is the complete turbine. And essentially what you're doing is you're using the cap wrench that comes with the turbine. And we know what cap wrench to send you based on the turbine that you've ordered for your specific handpiece. And you remove the head cap and you pop out the turbine and you put a new one in, and it takes you, 3 minutes, 4 minutes. And we've got a video that can help guide you if you need help that way. A lot of people like to watch maybe a video as they do it, and that will guide you through this repair. And so the idea here is that you've got a couple things that you can use as benefit or value to your practice. And one is you can inventory turbines. And so whenever your handpiece breaks, instead of doing the fire drill and calling your dealer or calling your repair person and waiting for them to come and then you can fix it that day right there. So we're taking away the instance of not having all of your handpieces in rotation. So you should have access to all of your handpieces every day. And by inventorying turbines, you can do that. Another way to do it is, as you need it, order from us, and we send it out. A couple of days later, you have your turbine and you do your repair. And what we see is there is a good number of dental offices that have different types of handpieces. I think it's rare these days for somebody to have 25 or 30 of the same handpiece. So with I'd say the majority of our orders are a couple of these turbines and a couple of those turbines, and we send instructions for all of them. So we have a turbine for every single make, every single model of high-speed pneumatic handpiece that any dentist in the United States or Canada would use.
Okay. And so how did you get into this? How did you learn how to do all this? And so what was your, like your eureka moment where you said, I can actually start doing this online and getting the kits to dentists so they can fix their own handpieces in their own office?
Yeah, excellent question, because it's a pretty niche, unusual type of business to be in. So great question. I'll back it up about 11 years. And my background is in franchising. I was a franchise restaurant development person. So I know franchising well. I got involved a number of years ago in a nationwide dental equipment repair franchise business. And one of the things that we did, in addition to fixing all of the capital equipment in the office, compressors, vacuum pumps, chairs, lights, everything that you would use as far as capital equipment, we also did high-speed handpieces. And so I got very familiar with the handpiece business, because obviously handpieces are ubiquitous in these offices, and it's one of the most common pieces of equipment that breaks. And so I got very familiar with handpieces and the functionality of them. And one of the things that I learned over the 10 to 12 years in that business was there are tens of thousands, if not more, dentists that are interested in saving some money. They don't mind spending 3 to 5 minutes doing a task like this. In fact, it's interesting because a lot of my customers actually enjoy it, and they've learned actually how their handpiece actually operates. So they enjoy doing these repairs. And so with the ease of being able to swap a turbine out and with the guidance of a video, my premise was that there would be a lot of dentists across the country, whether it's a dentist that owns one practice or a DSO, that would be interested in doing the repairs on their handpieces in the office on their own, for a number of reasons. One, we mentioned, for less downtime, all your handpieces are in rotation. Two, of course, save money. It's typically about half the cost of a repair. And so for these reasons, I started developing a concept to go direct to dentists outside of a dealer network, outside of your distributor, to sell turbines directly with the wrench and with instructions to the dental community. And this business has been up and running for about 15 months. And we have grown substantially over that time. And we've got, a good number of our customers are repeat customers. A lot of dentists will order a couple turbines, see if they can do it because they've never done it, realize how easy it is. And then we start getting more and more orders from those dentists in an effort to fix the rest of their handpieces.
So you worked for this franchise repair company, and were they based in New York City?
No, they're based in South Florida. I was the COO,
Okay.
the chief operating officer, and was there when the business was founded. So developed the business from the get-go, from the ground up. And it was a repair business where there's vans, repair vans across the country that call on dentists,
Mhm.
dental offices, and repair their equipment, sell equipment. But I was, what stuck with me after my departure was the handpiece part of the business, and how we could kind of reform how handpieces are repaired in the field and give more power to the dental offices to do this themselves.
And so when did you actually turn Turbi into, was it like a side hustle that you turned into your full hustle and you left the franchise job?
No, I left that gig in 2018, and Turby was on the back of my mind for a number of years. I just didn't have the time to really get into it, and then I went full
Yeah.
bore into it and launched it and put it all together. And since I'd say 15 months ago, after the concept was developed and launched, we've been out acquiring customers and helping dentists throughout the country and in Canada
Hmm.
repair their handpieces.
So were you pretty handy with all types of dental equipment, like the compressor and the sterilizers and all the delivery units? Were you pretty handy at fixing everything?
I was not. I wish I was better at that. But the franchisees went through extensive boot camp training to learn how to fix all of that equipment in the office.
Hmm.
So I'm familiar with the operation of all that equipment, what it all does, all of the manufacturers, what's good, what's not so good, what's high end, what's low end. But I don't know that I could walk into an office and fix a compressor today.
Okay, so it wasn't actually that you were fixing all this equipment. It was more the fact that you realized how easy it was to actually repair a handpiece, and that's where Turby came into play. Um, so let's talk about the handpiece, because one of the most annoying things uh, when you're working chair side is your handpiece has no torque or the burr slips out. And I used to work in an office where we only had three handpieces, and we'd have to wait for for it to cool down when it came out of the autoclave, and everything would just get backed up. The appointment would run late, and this is because of the handpiece. Um, so now in my current office, where I'm an owner, we have I think we have Star. We have Actually, I have it right here. We have, I think, about 30 of these, and we have a big rotation. This is Star.
So it looks like a
Um,
430, huh?
Yeah. So when I have we have a little system. So when it is low torque or the burr slips out, I'll tell my assistant slip or no torque, and then I'll put it to the side, and then she'll put it to the side so it doesn't get back into circulation. But I have about two or three in my drawer right next to my chair, so I can quickly grab another one. But there is nothing more annoying than when that handpiece doesn't work. Um, so does every dentist have like a graveyard where they throw all their broken stuff in, like we do? Like it's just a drawer full of handpieces that don't work and broken stuff.
Eric, every office has the drawer. And what we've seen with Turby as well is they'll fix a couple of their hand pieces, and then they'll go into that drawer and they'll start fixing all of their hand pieces. But it's so funny that you mentioned that, because for years, you know, we've been targeting the drawer, because they end up in that graveyard. And some of them are older hand pieces, and they should be in your rotation. They're going to perform just as well as the hand pieces that you use, but they sit in that drawer. And then we also see the fire drill where, how you're telling your assistant, hey, put this one aside. Well, eventually, they're all put aside. You come in the morning and you don't have enough hand pieces. And then it's a fire drill. Hey, we need them all repaired. We need them repaired immediately. We can't wait 24 hours because we don't have enough in rotation. So we see a lot of that too, where it's put it aside, put it aside, put it aside. And then it's a fire drill. But your particular handpiece, like that Star 430, it's one of the most common handpieces we see, and it's also the easiest handpiece to repair. I mean, you can repair that handpiece in 2 minutes. You pop off the back cap and you put it in a new turbine. You clean it out with a little alcohol, and you're good to go. And you won't have any problems. You'll have a handpiece that's going to be functioning for well over a year, depending on how you maintain your handpiece. but that will solve your problems. And you're doing it right. It sounds like you've got, 4 to 6 hand pieces per operatory. Is that right?
Yeah, I think we have about 30 total, so we have a pretty good inventory. But it seems like right around the same time, like every 6 months, they'll all start to go right around the same time, and then and then we're hustling to get them repaired.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we see a lot of practices that don't have enough in the rotation in the first place. And so they're playing that waiting game. The autoclave's running. They don't want to use it hot out of the autoclave. And so, they have issues with scheduling because they just don't have enough in their rotation. And it's kind of a shame. I mean, you shouldn't have your schedule impacted because you're a handpiece, right? So that is a pain point. It's a frustration. We're trying, our concept is to try to solve that problem.
So you said about 2 minutes, but with me, you have to multiply everything by 10 because I'm the least handy person. So, like when I build my kids' toys, it says 20 minutes. It takes me 2 hours and 4 beers later to build anything. So, but my partner and there are some staff members that are very handy. Um, so my partner likes to tinker, so I call him Tinkerbell. He's always tinkering, so he would love to repair his own handpiece. And I know exactly which staff members in my office would be good at this, that are very detail oriented and good with their hands. Um, but you mentioned a video. For me, no vidi, no Dewey. So I need a video. Um, I mean, you should have seen me try to build my kids' above ground pool this summer. The instructions were it was like reading Korean. So I watched the YouTube videos to finally build it. And about 8 hours later, I actually got it done. But so you have pretty good videos that go along with each one of these kits or handpieces.
Yeah, and I think that's a big part of it as well. Is the way these videos, across the board, whether you're assembling a swimming pool or whatever else, how these videos are shot and the fact that those videos are available is helping everybody do a lot of things, whether it's, construct something, build a toy, repair something that they could never do without watching a video. And one of the kind of aha moments as well was I've got a power washer, and the power washer I can't get it started. Right, it's like a 3,500 psi power washer. Can't get this thing going. Go on YouTube. I type in the name of the power washer and whatnot, and there's a video there on how to clean out the carburetor. Now I couldn't even tell you where the carburetor was until watching this video. So I followed the video and I cleaned out the carburetor and I got this thing fired up and it was working fine. So, you watch a video, just like you mentioned, whether you're constructing a pool, whether you're fixing a dental handpiece, if you could follow the steps of the video and sit there with your mouse and pause it and go and pause it and go and pause it and go, it's amazing what you can accomplish. And by written instructions, it's not the same. I mean, I could give you 3 pages of written instructions and I can give you a video on the other side. And, the video is going to be much more effective because you're watching somebody do it. So the video portion of this is a very important part of this concept. The fact that you order the handpiece kit, we send you a QR code that you can scan on your phone that will bring up the video, or you can just go to the website and you can click on the particular handpiece that you have and it will go to that video. So the video part of this, and whether you're sitting there with your iPhone or whether you're sitting there, next to your laptop computer and you've got the video on, that video guide is going to help, a good number of our Turbi customers. Not everybody. Some of these guys can just, they're so handy that they can just kind of, white knuckle through it without watching a video. But the video is an essential part of this concept.
And your kits, can they handle most handpieces out there? So I have the Star. I also have a few of these Midwests lying around, which I
Yep.
use mainly for the back lab, or to do like a quick adjustment. I think we have about 3 of those, but our main handpiece is the Star. Can you pretty much handle all handpieces?
Any handpiece. There, virtually any handpiece that a dentist is going to use in this country, we have a turbine for. So we should be able to help any dentist with any of their high-speed pneumatic. We're not talking about 1 to 5 contra angles. We're not talking about electrics. We're talking about air-driven pneumatic handpieces, which are still probably 75 to 80% of the total market.
So what is this? This is my slow speed. Is this
Yeah,
a 1 to
that's an
5?
that's not a 1 to 5. A 1 to 5 is going to have a red. You have a blue there, so that's a speed reducing. That we can fix, but you can't fix that in the office. So on Turbi's website, there is a section called electric handpiece repair. You can follow the prompts on there and fill out information, and then throw that in a package. We send you a label, and you send that to us, and we will repair that per an estimate to you. So electric and slow speeds those have too many parts and they're too complicated to fix in the office. The high speed pneumatics, which are also the most ubiquitous, most common in these practices, those are the handpieces that we're targeting for you to repair in the office. So there's a distinct difference. The air driven are powered by your compressor in the airline, whereas an electric, that's got gear. That handpiece that you just held up has gears inside. So it's not driven by air, it's driven by an electric motor that powers the gears. And then the gears turn at, tens of thousands of RPMs, and they do what you need it to do.
So there's like totally different animals, the electric and the air driven handpiece. What was it, 1 to 5? What did that mean again?
It's a contra angle. It's equivalent to a high speed handpiece. So, a dentist would use a 1 to 5 in the same instances that they would use a Azure Star 430.
What does that mean, 1 to 5?
It's a 1 to 5 is the ratio of the gears.
Okay.
And so what it does, it increases the speed. The motor increases the speed, and it pushes the turbine to probably, 350 to 400,000 RPMs to cut.
Okay. And what about straight handpieces? For example, like I have, one of these straight handpieces that I use to adjust dentures or my temporary crowns or hygiene handpieces. Are those also considered more electric and gear driven?
Yeah, those come in. All the air driven, we send the turbines out. So
Okay.
we tackle all of the high speeds in the office, and then on the low speed motors and electric handpieces, they get solved here.
Okay. So I love the word delegate. That nothing makes me more happy than to delegate. So if I could delegate this to a staff member, and if we had, a bunch of handpieces that went down and they could fix them, let's say a hygienist, their patient didn't show, and instead of having them call, recall patients, I could actually have them repair my handpieces with this kit and the video, and they could actually fix all the handpieces in that hour and be very productive.
Correct. And we're, in marketing Turbi, we don't want to pin it to the dentist. It's not necessarily the dentist. It could be the assistant, it could be the hygienist, it could be the office manager. So you could absolutely do that. You should do that. So it's not Turbi to the dentist, it's Turbi to the dental office. And then, as the dentist wants to delegate that down, some do it themselves, some delegate it. But yeah, I think that's absolutely something that you might want to do as far as delegating that work down to an assistant or a hygienist, as long as, they're open to doing it. They're good with their hands, which typically a hygienist or an assistant is pretty good with their hands. So I don't think that they would have much of an issue doing it.
Yeah, I know specifically who in my office would be good at this. That's good with their hands, but I love to delegate. Delegate means I can go back to my comfy chair in my back office and go on the internet and listen to some tunes and have my staff fix the handpieces so I don't have to. So you're saying, I could fix that star handpiece in a few minutes. So for example, I get the patient numb, and that usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes sometimes. In that time, I could test the handpiece and I usually test the handpiece outside of the mouth in case the burr slips. So I test it, if it's not working, I could actually repair it, either chair side or take it to the lab. And while the patient is numb, in 5 minutes, I could be right back to business and not miss a beat.
You could do that. I think that's an aggressive approach, but you could do that. I mean, especially after getting one repair under your belt, after doing one of these and understanding what it's all about, I think that, 2, 3, 4, and all the subsequent repairs are going to get easier because you know what you're doing.
Yeah. My point is that you don't have to be down. You don't have to delay the schedule. Even if
Correct.
you're just starting it out and your supplies are limited and you only have a few hand pieces, you don't have to wait for the previous hand piece to come out of the autoclave. You can just fix the one that you have, right there, and get back to business.
No
Um,
downtime. No downtime is a big
yeah.
part of
No.
this.
Um, Now, are you finding any hand pieces are better than others? Some that just don't go down as often. Some are more reliable, like the Star versus Midwest or Cavo. What are your? Because you're probably you see the data, you see what's coming in and what
Yep.
kits you're sending out more. What's the data out there say?
Yeah, a lot of these manufacturers have, good, better, best, especially, like a Cavo or an NSK. Star doesn't have that as much. I mean, it's really like the workhorse of Star 430.
Hmm.
But even within the good, better, best, the turbines that we replace, they all have a year warranty and they usually last way beyond a year. And so we don't really see with a particular make or model of a handpiece, that it's not as durable or it's not going to last as long as far as a repair. It may perform differently. I mean, you're going to spend more money for a high end handpiece. It's going to perform differently, but it's not going to necessarily last longer as far as the turbine goes. Um, you know, we probably see more Star 430s and sell more Star 430 turbines than anything else, but that's changing too. I think that Star, while they still have a significant market share in the U.S., NSK is really taking a lot of the market share from Cavo and from Star. And Star is really more of a United States product. Worldwide, you don't see as much Star overseas in Europe or in Asia. And remember, I mean, we're talking about a global market here where these handpieces, whether it's NSK, Cavo, these are international products. The dentist in Barcelona is using the same handpiece as you're using. So it's not like there's different products, depending on where you are in the world. And so as far as the United States market share, NSK has done a tremendous job of getting their name out there, building recognition, and getting their product in the dentist hands. So, we're seeing a trend towards, more NSKs because more dentists have NSKs, but we haven't really pinned down the data to say like, hey, an NSK is more reliable than a Cavo, or a Cavo is more reliable than a Star as far as, durability goes, as far as the length it's going to go after you repair a turbine.
So is it more just how well you're taking care of it and the maintenance, uh, that they should realistically last all around the same as long as you're getting a good name brand?
Yeah, I would think so. Now, there is a lot of options for turbines in the marketplace. And this is a really important point and something that I can't really stress enough. There are vast differences in turbines. There's product coming in from Asia that will last, 2 to 3 months, and you're going to pay very little for that product. And a lot of these products, and it's not a fear thing, but a lot of these products that are coming into the country and sold on eBay now are not FDA approved. And dentists are buying them on eBay. They're putting them in their handpieces, and their handpieces may run for a couple months. They typically don't last long. Some of them are using used parts. Some of them are just knockoffs. And NSK, particularly because it's so big globally, their handpieces are knocked off and they're sold on eBay. So, we'll see dentists that order a turbine for an NSK handpiece, and the turbine may not be the right turbine because the NSK handpiece it's a counterfeit handpiece. So there's this whole, there's this gray industry of fake handpieces and aftermarket turbine parts that will not last. And the most important part in the turbine is the two bearings, the front and the back bearings. And the bearings are going to be what prominently are what actually leads to a longer durability of a turbine. The bearings are usually what's going to fail first. And so all of Turbi's turbines are ceramic turbines. They're going to last longer. They're more durable. They're going to spin better. You're going to have better torque and less noise. And so, to dentists out there that are watching this podcast and saying, well, I could buy a Star 430 turbine on eBay for $39. My advice to you would be, it's probably going to not last very long. That's A. B, it may not be approved for use. And the last thing you want is a burr flying out of a turbine that you bought that's not approved. And again, this is trying to give our listeners information, not to scare them in any way. But you got to be careful out there, and you got to say, it's not always best to buy what's the cheapest. And these are all made and manufactured to different specifications. And when you're talking about a turbine that spins at 350 or 400,000 RPMs, every millimeter matters. And so it's really important that you buy from a reputable company, or that who's ever doing your repairs is using reputable handpiece parts, because we're seeing an influx. We're seeing more and more stuff coming in that really shouldn't be used and shouldn't be brought to market and is not legal to bring to market. So that's just kind of what we're seeing in the market as far as turbines go and handpieces go.
So you're in your kit, in the Turbi kit, it's a brand new turbine each time?
Yeah, we don't reuse, we don't rebuild any parts. Another way that it seems to be fading a little bit, but it was big, 10, 15, 20 years ago, was rebuilding. You might get a repair guy in your office that says, hey, Eric, do you want a new turbine? Or, you want me to see if I can rebuild the turbine. And a rebuilt turbine just basically means you're swapping out the bearings, and the impeller and the spindle are being reused. And we don't recommend that either. We recommend that every time your handpiece is repaired, you put a new turbine in. Fixing some of the parts we don't think is safe, and we don't think it's the right way to repair a handpiece. And so we don't reuse any parts. We're not getting the turbine back from the dentist, so we don't have an opportunity to reuse parts. But I can tell you, in the repair business, we see a lot of that, where somebody's going to come in, take your handpieces, repair them, and reuse some of those parts to rebuild another turbine. So you just got to be careful, and you got to buy from a reputable source. And quality really matters when you're talking about dental turbines. And I have a blog on the Turbi site that talks about quality and talks about performance and talks about warranty period. But all of those things are vitally important. A Star 430 turbine is not a Star 430 turbine. They're all different.
Mm-hmm. When you say they're all different, does the company have every year, do they come out with a new version which makes it slightly different, so that you have to keep on getting the updated version?
No, I'm just talking about the quality of the parts.
Okay.
In an aftermarket world.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So you mentioned rebuilds. I think that's what my partner does. He has this little machine. It's like a press.
Really
it looks
handy.
like my tennis racket stringing machine, just in a smaller version. It's got like a drop weight thing.
It's a
and
press.
He says the words. It's a press. Yeah. He says the words spindle and impeller, and I look at him like, he has three heads, because I have no idea what he's talking about. But he must be rebuilding the turbines, and I think we get about 3 to 6 months out of them. But you're guaranteeing yours will last, because they're brand new, they last a year?
Yeah, they last a year. Well, not necessarily because they're brand new, because just the way that they're manufactured and the quality of the bearings. That the minimum warranty on all of our handpiece turbines is a year. And we take pride in the fact that even if you're going apples to apples with another turbine that's a year, our turbines are going to make it far beyond a year. The year is the 1 year warranty, right? So if it breaks within a year, you send it back to us, we'll send you a new turbine. But typically, as long as the dentist is lubricating their handpieces and, they've got 4 or 5 or the right number per operatory, and they're not autoclaving these things, just to the death of them, um, these are going to last far beyond a year, these turbines, but the year is the warranty. So I would go up against any turbine as far as, apples to apples in terms of how long it's going to last. And I would say ours is going to last longer than anybody else's. And so, what your partner's doing, very, very few dentists do that. Pressing on the bearings, that's going to take him, he's probably taking 20 minutes, a half hour per turbine. If he bought a Turbi turbine, he could swap. And he knows the inner workings of these. He could swap it in 2 minutes, and instead of lasting 6 months, it's going to probably last a year and a half.
Now, you said yours were ceramic. What's the difference between a ceramic and a non-ceramic turbine?
Yeah. So when we talk about a ceramic, we're not talking about the turbine. We're talking about the bearings. We're talking about the balls within the within the bearing. So the bearing, the bearing is protecting the balls with the cage. Ceramic bearings are rounder, if that's a word. They're rounder, they spin better, and they last longer than steel bearings. And so steel bearings also corrode in the autoclave, whereas ceramic bearings will last longer. So a ceramic, a bearing with ceramic balls is going to outlast a bearing with steel balls any day of the week. And we think at Turbi that, every bearing going into a dental handpiece should have ceramic balls in it.
That was my nickname in high school, by the way.
And by the way, we just put a blog post up about balls, ceramic balls.
Okay, I'm gonna have to check that out. And so, was that like the game changer going from ceramic or going to ceramic? And do you print those yourself? How do you make those?
Right, they're coming from Germany. They're coming from a manufacturer in Germany. But no, I wouldn't say it's a game changer.
Mhm.
It's just gonna make the handpiece after a repair last longer. And
Mhm.
before ceramic balls were put into bearings for dental handpieces, the repairs just didn't last as long. You're talking about a 6-month repair.
My partner is German, so he'll like the fact that you're selling German balls. Um, so I wanted to get to a few things before we wrap up. You wrote in your to me that you were actually the reason I asked way back if that franchise that you're part of was in New York City because you wrote that you were there when the World Trade Center went down. Is that right?
Yeah. So in your questionnaire, you had asked me, something unique. And although this, I don't, this is not a positive thing, but yeah, that was the first thing that came to my mind was in September of September 11th, I was there. I wasn't in the dental business at that time, but I was in Lower Manhattan, and I got out of my office building, but I was only blocks away from from the trade centers when they fell down, walking up the east side. So obviously a day that you won't ever forget. That I obviously won't forget. But yeah, it was a pretty crazy event. I got out of the subway in the morning and was walking to my office, and you looked in the sky and there was burning paper everywhere. And this is before we knew what happened. And initially the reports were coming out that one of the trade centers was hit by a small commuter plane. You remember that? And the news was that, it was on fire, but it was a small commuter plane. But, I got out of the subway and looked up and it was like raining down paper that was on fire. Like if you lit a piece of paper, how the edges burn and it kind of just like floats. So it was like snowing, burning paper. And it obviously, it smelled like a fire. And then my
Wow.
building was I was right next to the New York Stock Exchange. So I was, I don't know, a few blocks from the Trade Center, and we were in our morning meeting, and then the second tower got hit and our whole building shook and the lights went out, and we didn't like anybody else, we didn't know what to do. And the guy that was running the business got on the speaker and said, hey, we don't know what's going on. You can stay, you can leave, we don't know what's safe. And so we left and started walking up the east side. So we walked out of our building, and, to the left of me was, at this point, both the trade centers were on fire, but never in our wildest dreams did we think that it was going to fall down. There was holes in them. I just thought that they were going to put out the fire. I never envisioned them falling down. And so I was heading up the east side of Manhattan. I lived in Midtown. So, you weren't getting on a subway, there was just, tens of thousands of people walking up the east side and walking across the Brooklyn Bridge to get away from lower Manhattan. And, we were walking up, and, I remember turning around and seeing the first tower fall. And, everybody was like running at me. If you saw those pictures, everybody's running at me, and I just was like standing there, like I couldn't move,
Mm-hmm.
and we were far enough away that we weren't in like the dust storm of it. But it was, seeing that thing and hearing that thing fall. And then once the first one fell, we were then, obviously thinking the second one was going to fall too. And, there was urgency before to get out of that area. But, once the first one came down, then it became more urgent. But, we were walking up the east side, and, we were hearing people, we didn't know what was going on. None of our cell phones worked. We didn't have radios, so nobody really knew what was going on. And we were hearing all kinds of rumors of other things that were happening, in New York and in Washington. So we didn't really know what was going on. Obviously that's a day that, any of us that were old enough will never forget. But to be down there on that day was, etched in your mind.
So did you get engulfed in that big cloud of dust when they came down?
No, we were just far enough away. We were kind of right at the outside of that. So you had to be, pretty close, probably within, I don't know, a quarter of a mile, I'd say, or less, to kind of get engulfed in that dust cloud. So we were beyond that. But I remember coming back, Lower Manhattan was closed for a week. You couldn't get down there, obviously. And then that was on a Tuesday that the towers got hit. And the following Monday, it reopened. And so, I went back to work down there. And, the military was down there, and you had to show ID. And I remember going back up to my desk, and my desk was like, I was on like the 20-something floor. And, these are older buildings, and I had like a window kind of air conditioner, and so this soot had come through the air conditioner, and like my entire desk was covered. My keyboard was covered in the dust and the soot from the trade center. And I remember like we worked for a week, and we tied a shirt around our head, because you couldn't even breathe. So, for weeks I was breathing that stuff in. And even in Midtown, anybody will tell you that when they were in New York after September 11th, the whole city smelled, so we were all breathing that stuff in. But those first responders, about all the respiratory issues that they had, and how they lobbied. And I think Jon Stewart was a big part of that to try to get money for those first responders. You breathe that stuff in. It's fiberglass and just, not healthy, not healthy.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the burning paper. There must have been so much paper in those buildings that I can picture, the way you described it, that it just raining, burning paper. That is unbelievable. All right. So that is, I was in dental school. I was in my third year of dental school, and I think everyone remembers where they were when they first heard, but you were actually there. That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
All right. So let's, I want to wrap things up with, something that I feel very strongly about, is, your entrepreneurial spirit, and that you actually started this company. And the reason I'm mentioning this is because to a lot of dentists out there, you can do this. You can start a company like this. Like Brian thought of a pain point, of a way he could make things better in the industry. And like personally with my website, there was a lot of doubt that crept in, and a lot of negativity. And I had this big whiteboard that said, "You can do this." And I started my website, Deals for Dentists, over the quarantine shutdown. And there was a lot of doubt that crept in that, I'm a dentist, what business do I have starting a website? But to all the dentists out there and entrepreneurs, you can do this. You just have to keep at it and take action and stay positive and don't let doubt take over your spirit. So, what was that process like for you in starting Turbi and starting your own business and startup? And did you have doubt that this wouldn't be a successful
I
business?
think you always have doubts, and one of my doubts was, you know, at the top of it was, can these offices do these repairs? I think it's easy. I think with a video, it's easy. I think it should take less than 5 minutes. But can they, upon receiving this wrench and this turbine, actually do this repair? And I open it up and say, look, to any dentist that orders from us, if you can't do it, no problem. I'll send you a shipping label. Send me back your handpiece with the turbine, and we'll do it for you. And I was worried, what is this going to look like? 5%, 10%, 15%? How many people are not going to be able to do it? And I was pleasantly surprised to the downside. I mean, very, very, very few call me up or call Turbi up and say, hey, I got this and I can't do it. There's a common problem that some dentists run across, that they overuse their handpiece to the point where when they remove the cap, the back bearing has exploded. And so the balls are all in the turbine, and the casing of the back bearing is stuck in the head cap, and you just have to wedge it out with an Explorer. But that's about the only issue that we ever see, and we resolve that issue in 30 seconds. Because they look at it and they say something, it doesn't seem right here. We tell them how to get it out of there, and they get the casing of the back bearing out of there. But my doubt was, this whole concept is predicated on DIY, doing it yourself. How many of these people are going to be able to do it themselves? And so I was very concerned about that, because that's the heart of this business. If I'm sending 10 of these out and 8 of them are coming back because they can't do it themselves, I got a major issue with the concept. And so, nobody had ever done anything like this where they said, hey, doctor or hygienist or office manager, do this yourself. Here's a video. And so there was no precedent for this. We didn't know, how many people would embrace it. We knew that people wanted to save money. We knew that people would try it, but we didn't know what the results were going to be. So that was like, in starting the business, that was my biggest fear, because that was what this was all based on. And then, I knew if that wasn't going to be an issue, which it turned out to not be an issue, we would overcome that first obstacle. But, then it's, well, how are you going to market this? Where are you going to get your business from? How are you going to handle the logistics? What are your KPIs? And just like I tell my kids, I mean, you got to take it like, you eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? I mean, you got to build, like, you can't do this in one day, even with the dental practices and the dentists, it's like, you got to take little chunks every day. And then after a month or after a quarter or after 6 months or after a year, you've made huge changes or huge strides. So, you can't a lot of people get overwhelmed, like, I've got all of this stuff to do and I've got to do it now. You don't have to do it now. You've got to set aside your priorities and figure out what the most important things to do. And then you've got to accomplish those little tasks, those little goals. And it's amazing what you do over time, right? And I remember talking to you, you put this together during the pandemic, and, over that period of time, I mean, you put a lot of these pieces together to get to where you are now. And it wasn't in one day. So it's like, you kind of have to take a step back and take it step by step and not get overwhelmed by the process.
Yeah, the process can be extremely overwhelming. That was kind of the silver lining for COVID for me, is that I actually had the time to really hunker down and develop a website. But to those dentists out there, if if you're thinking of a pain point, and you have a solution for it, and you think there's actually a business there and something that you can do and help other dentists, you know, do it, because it is such a great distraction to have something else going on other than just the office, to have another endeavor going on. So again, thanks so much, Brian. Brian Dershow, founder of Turbi. you can check out his promo offer on dealsfordentist.com. 10% off all turbines with a minimum purchase of 2, and use the code D for D at checkout. And thanks again so much for joining us. Any last words of wisdom or nuggets for the young dentists or young entrepreneurs out there?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. And, kudos to you and the work that you put in on your site and on the work that you've done to get so many sponsors and vendors on your site. So, I mean, that's not easy to do. So great job for you. And yeah, my message to all the dentists, the young dentists coming out of school, the guys that have been out there for years and know what they're doing. If you haven't repaired your handpiece or you haven't tried, you're going to be pretty surprised at how easy it is to do and how you can really solve an issue that you might worry about, which is, do I have enough handpieces to get through the day, and reduce your downtime dramatically.
Awesome. All right, Brian, thanks so much. Let's be in touch.
Yep. Thanks, Eric. Take care, man. Be good.
Okay. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Bye.